Aina, kita boleh mula. Bismillah.
Our respected expert speaker, Head of Department of Legal Studies, lecturers and students of CFS IIUM. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good evening. Welcome to the online legal lecture, Features of the Malaysian Government, discovering the key features of Malaysian government organized by Foundation Law Student Society, MeLEX, in collaboration with the Department of Legal Studies, CFS IIUM. Let us begin our program in this evening with the recitation of Kitab Al-Fatiha. We are honored to have Associate Professor Dr. Shariah Abdul Aziz as our expert speaker for this evening. It is truly an honor to have you here with us in this virtual space, and we appreciate your time and willingness to be with us. My name is Aina Batrisha binti Sulaiman, and I will be your MC for this program. It is my privilege to guide you through what promises to be an inspiring, thought-provoking session. To officially start today's forum, I will pass the floor to the moderator, Brother Muhammad Aiman Najmi bin Muhammad Risti.
Okay, thank you, Aina Patricia, our MC for tonight. Let us continue with me, Aiman Najmi, Foundation in Law Student, CFS IIUM, as your moderator. And now, with great pleasure, it is my honor to invite our special guest, expert speaker, which I believe most of us have known her before, since she is not only well-known lecturer in IIUM, but also in Malaysia. Please welcome Dato' Associate Professor Dr. Shariah binti Abdul Aziz. Assalamualaikum, Dato'.
Waalaikumsalam
How
warahmatullahi.
are you tonight, Dato'?
Sihat, Alhamdulillah. I'm fine.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, before we begin, I feel very honored to share a little bit background of our speakers today. Dato' Associate Professor Doctor is a lecturer in IIUM since 1991. She holds degree in law, Shariah of law, master in comparative law, diploma in Shariah law and practice, and also PhD in law. Her area in interest include constitutional law, human rights, Islamic criminal procedure, Islamic criminal law, and administration of justice. And she has taught the related courses for almost 30 years. Furthermore, she is a prolific writer who writes almost 40 journal articles and chapters in book. She has written 4 books in total and also guest writer in various local newspapers, written more than 500 articles on various issues concerning law, especially constitutional and Islamic law. And proudly mentioned, she is the advisory board member, National Archives of Malaysia, incumbent institution of the Malay Rulers Chair at UiTM, and member of the Judicial Appointment Commission, which means Dato is one of the member that appoint judge in Malaysia. Okay, without further ado, let we begin. To give all of you context, today we will discover key features of Malaysia government, which we will focus into 3 main parts: Malaysian as Federation, Parliamentary Democracy, and Constitutional Monarchy. For each part, I will ask Dato 2 to 3 questions, which each question may take in 10 to 50 minutes. Alright, Dato, may we start now?
Ya, insyaAllah.
Okay, thank you, Dato. We start with the first part, Malaysia as a Federation. First question, Dato. Can you explain what is mean by Malaysia is a federation? And we all learned that federal constitution state that there is division power between federal and state. And why do we need this division of power? And why not only federal have the power and authority.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih, Aiman Najmi. Thank you for inviting me. And I would like to thank also the lecturers and colleagues as the IUM Foundation. Yeah. Thank you for inviting me and for having me this in this program for tonight. Yes, the subject that we are talking is very important in the sense that we must know the basic issues and the matters that we should know about our country. First of all, as introduced by Aiman Najmi just now, that we are living in a federal kind of a government. And therefore, in a federal kind of a government, there's sharing of powers between the central government and also the state governments, or the federal government and also the state governments. So federation, as we know, that this country composed of various states, and a federal kind of government is a system, is a political system adopted or applied in the universal level, and also we being part of, we have formed part of the federation, part of the world that practicing the federal type of government. So it's a political system, it's the administrative system, and the membership in the federation is based on a voluntary participation, meaning to say it's an association of more than one states to form the federation. And for Malaysia, we have 13 states and 3 federal territories. And these states we have in stages that we form Federation of Malaya in 1957, and we form Malaysia in 1963. Therefore, we have a kind of, we have changed the 1957 federation and become a federation in 1963. The composition of the participatory states increasing from 11 to 13 from 1957 to 1963. And what most important is in a federal kind of a government is a division of powers. One, I said just now that participation in a federal kind of a government is a voluntary participation. And the states that participate as a membership in a federation usually independent states, and they decide by themselves whether they want to form a federation or they do not want. That those countries and those states which agree to form the federation, then they be a member of the federation. And in a federation, there must be agreement, meaning to say the state will surrender certain powers and the state will retain certain powers. So whatever, originally the powers belongs to the states, but when the states agree to form the federation, they give to the federal government certain powers, and they retain to them with certain powers. So that is the beginning of division of powers between federal and state government. So there must be agreement, the giving away the powers and also to retain the powers. There's an agreement, and that agreement is named as a federal constitution. So whatever agreement that have been agreed, whatever terms that have been agreed by the states will be written in a written constitution. That is why we have a written constitution. So most of the federal kind of a government will have a federal constitution. So the federal constitution also can be referred to as a written agreement between the parties involved, between the states and the federal government. Be that is may, the state surrender certain powers and the federal government gets the powers from the states. And there will be an agreement also that there will be an agreement also to establish a joint machinery of consultation between the states and the federal. So because there will be interactions from time to time, and of course there will be disputes, there will be problems in the running of the or administration of the country. Therefore, there will be a machinery of consultation or machinery of deliberation between the federal and the state government. So in Malaysia, we agree to have a strong centralized government. A strong centralized government, and this is mentioned in the Reid report. Yeah, so this is one of the terms of the appointment of the Reid report. I think you are all familiar with Constitutional Commission, which is known, popularly known as the Reid Commission. They prepared a report, and in the report was stating that the terms of reference in the appointment of the Reid Commission is that they have to create a constitution which give more powers to the central government. So the division of powers is necessary because in a federation, there's an element of sharing of powers. There's element of submission or surrender of powers, but there will be respect to the states. Whereby in a federal kind of government, usually the residual matters which are not, explicitly spelled out or divided, or there's to create a dichotomy of powers, and that is known as which is not included in the list, is named as residual powers. So in the federal kind of government, it is usual, it's normal that the residual powers belongs to the states. I think that is all, Aiman, for the beginning.
Okay, thank you, Dato'. Okay, I think the second question may be a little bit interesting. It's still about the division of power. In Article 3 of Federal Constitution, stated that Islam is the religion of Federal Constitution. Islam is the religion of Federal. But can Dato' explain why Shariah been put under jurisdiction of state government rather than being put under jurisdiction of federal government, although Islam is the religion of the federation?
As we all know, the history of Islam in the constitution is quite a long history, and there are kinds of miracles that happen. The reason was not explained why Islam was declared as a religion of the federation, as we find this in Article 3. As we all know, the history that Islam is a subject of the states. It's never changed. But when we were forming the federation, there were proposals from the Alliance Party that we should have Islam as the religion of the federation. So initially, this was objected by the rulers of the states because Islam being the subject matter of the states. Among the reasons that the rulers did disagree to have Islam as the religion, to include Islam as the religion of the federation in the federal constitution, because the subject was not, because matters regarding Islam was not discussed during the Constitutional Conference in London in January to February 1956. So since it was not discussed, it is the expectation of the ruler that the status quo should remain, that Islam should be at the state level. However, after being convinced that although we have Islam as the religion of the federation, Islam shall still remain under the leadership or under the rulers of each state. That is why now we have difference of administration of states of Islam in every state. So let's say, for instance, we have Sharia courts at the state level. Therefore, we have 14 Sharia courts. We have 14 Yang Amat Arif, what we call the Chief Justice of the Sharia courts. Yeah? So we have this separated due to why the subject matter of Islamic law or matters regarding Islam is divided between the federal government and the state government. But you must remember that in 1957, when the working committee came out with the proposal, the working committee suggested that working committee is a committee established after the Reid Commission submitted their report. Reid Commission prepared the report and prepared a draft for the federal constitution, and people in Malaya at that time was thinking of to review or to examine, to analyze what had been provided for in the Reid Commission by setting up a working committee. So the working committee studied the report by the Reid Commission, and the working committee, the Reid Commission did not include Islam in their draft of the constitution. But the word Islam, the phrase that Islam is a religion of the Federation was suggested and included or finalized to be included in the Federal Constitution by the Working Committee. So while suggesting that the Working Committee suggesting that the Islam should be the religion of the Federation, be declared in the Federal Constitution, it is also mentioned in the report, the Working Committee report, that there must be a mechanism. There must be a mechanism for the purpose of uniformity in the administration of the state. Sorry, in the administration of Islam in every state. Therefore, it was recommended that the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, in the report by the Working Committee report, it was stated that after the independence, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong should discuss with the Conference of Rulers for the establishment of a council at the federal level. The council is in charge of Muslim affairs, of Islamic affairs at the federal level, and for the purpose of coordination and uniformity of the administration of Islam. Therefore, after the independence, almost 10 years after independence, in 1966, and formally in 1968, the Conference of Rulers agreed to form an institution named as National Islamic Affairs Council. In bahasa kita panggil, we call it as Majlis Kebangsaan Hal Ehwal Islam atau MKI. So MKI is an institution to facilitate, to coordinate the administration of Islam, whether it's Shariah or whether it's economic Islam, whether it's social or education, social life or education, Islamic education, then it will be under the jurisdiction of the MKI, the Majlis Kebangsaan Hal Ehwal Islam, or Muslim National Affairs Council. So sometimes, sometimes there's a misunderstanding when to say that Islam at all times, or Islamic law at all times under the states. Because one of the provisions in the Constitution, if you realize, I hope my students also will refer to Federal List, 9 Schedule Federal List, or List number 1, or first list. In item 4, paragraph K, it mentions that the Parliament has the power in the ascertainment of Islamic law for the purpose of federal law. Ascertainment of hukum syara can be done by the Parliament for the purpose of Islamic law. Sorry, for the purpose of federal law. So that is to say that not all times that the federal is denied of the power to ensure that the Sharia will be, or the hukum syara will be a subject matter, can also be a subject matter under the federal power or under the federal legislature. In addition, if we properly look at item number 1, second list, 9 schedule, or the state list 9 schedule, item number 1 also mentioned that the jurisdiction of the Sharia court shall be determined by a federal law. The jurisdiction of the Sharia court shall be determined by a federal law. In terms of offences, the Sharia court shall not have the power unless it is conferred by the federal law. So meaning to say, although Islam means Islam is a state matter means matters regarding to Islamic education, social matters involving Muslims, economic matters involving Muslim, and also the Sharia, because Islam is a wide area. So it is not only about Sharia, but it's about precepts of Islam and other matters, generally under the states. But it does not in any way deny the federal government to facilitate as the existence of MKI, or the National Council of Muslim Affairs, Islamic Affairs, or item number 4, paragraph K of this first list 9 schedule allows Parliament to ascertain the hukum syara for the purpose of making federal law. So in consequence, we have certain we have a department in the Attorney General Chamber. For instance, we have a department of harmonization of law. So at the federal level, Attorney General's chamber also have something to do with the hukum syara to ensure that all laws conform with the principles of Sharia. Therefore, there will be agency at the federal level. Similarly, we have JAKIM. We have JAKIM means Department of Islamic Advancement, and we have also the Department of Islamic Judiciary, JKSM, Jabatan Kehakiman Syariah. So we can see that although Islam is a state matter, there will be a coordination, there will be facilitation from the federal government, and we have a sumber, we have a source of law, we have a source of power from the constitution itself. So now we should change a certain understanding, our understanding that Islam is always a subject matter of states. So there can be, because Islam, to me, Islam is inclusive rather than exclusive. Therefore, on the state government and so the federal government share certain powers or certain matters regarding Islam, and this is justified by the words or by the provisions of the federal constitution itself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dato'. I believe that all of us have understood, although we have 14 different Sharia court in state, but for uniformity, we have council, MKI, even jurisdiction of Sharia law that Dato' said it is also under federal. We have JAKIM and everything. So there's actually no problem lah that federal been denied in Islamic thing. So actually federal not been denied lah. So the last questions for the first part is, maybe all of us heard these cases before. Case of Ni Elin Zurina binti Ni Abdul Rashid and another against Kerajaan Negeri Kelantan, which 16 Syariah laws were deemed null, void and unconstitutional. And in these cases, many people make assumption and believe that power of Sharia court has been reduced, and to the extent that Sharia court no longer have authority. Maybe Datuk can elaborate more on this misunderstanding so that they can understand about this concept of division of power.
Yeah, I think it's beginning from our understanding that Islam is a state matter. Therefore, the federal is denied from making laws, or is denied from interference, or I quote unquote interference or matters regarding Islam. But I can request or I can advise everybody to read item number 1 in the case of Ni Elin, yeah? In relation to Ni Elin. Yeah? In item number 1, second list 9 schedule, we must understand that the State Legislative Assembly shall have the power to create offenses against the precept of Islam, The Sharia courts also, the State Legislative Assembly, however, does not have the power in regard to matters included in the federal list. Meaning to say, we have to see what are those matters under the federal list. In Ni Elin's case, she challenged the constitutionality of the certain provisions of law, the constitutionality is on the ground of the unconstitutionality, challenge the constitutionality of certain provisions in the state of Kelantan legislation or enactment. The grounds that she challenged was the incompetency of the state legislature, meaning to say the state legislature has no power to make or has no jurisdiction to make the provisions of law. The reason is because the state legislature has made a provisions of law, has created provisions in the enactment on matters which already fall under the federal list. So now we admit that the state legislature has a power to create offences against the precept of Islam if the offences involve people professing the religion of Islam. However, the state legislature cannot legislate matters which is found to fall under the federal list. So what the court was asked to do is to declare the competency or the incompetency of the state legislature. So the court says that there are various offences, 16 to 17 provisions are considered as unconstitutional for being part of the matters under the federal list. Which part of the federal list is especially item number 3 and item number 4 of the federal list 9 schedule. So I think the decision or the interpretation of the law is correct. So the federal legislature can, the state legislature cannot make law under the matters or on matters which already falls under the federal list. So here, meaning to say when the federal court decided the state legislature has no power to make such provision. Therefore, the offences or the provisions have been declared unconstitutional. So when it's declared unconstitutional, definitely the Shariah court will not hear the case. So, of course, the implication or the consequence of such a decision is that it will reduce the jurisdiction of the Shariah courts. But whether the reduction of the jurisdiction of the Shariah courts, in the sense that the Shariah court has no more jurisdiction to hear cases involving those which have been declared unconstitutional by the federal courts. So yes, in that sense, it's had reduced the Shariah court's power. But the issue that we must properly understand is whether the reduction of jurisdiction or to reduce the jurisdiction of the Shariah court is something which is against the constitution or not. So my answer is that since the interpretation, I incline to agree with the decision in the Alin because there is explicit provisions in the constitution saying that the state legislature has no power to make law if the matter falls under the federal list. So let's say, for instance, the courts acts as the court in the federal court in the case has explained when the subject matter is purely regarding Muslims, is involve only Muslim or can involve only Muslim, then it will be under the state legislature power and jurisdiction. If the offense can be committed by both Muslims and non-Muslim, therefore it should go to the federal list. So the federal legislature, the courts at the federal level will have the jurisdiction over Muslims and non-Muslims. Therefore, the law which applicable to Muslims and can be applicable to Muslim and non-Muslim, it will be under the federal list. So the formula the court used to decide whether this is the offenses are involving Muslims or not, then the courts will go to the pith and substance of the provision. If the substance of the provisions applicable only to the Aqidah of Muslims or the matters regarding Muslims only, then it will be under the power of the state legislature. So, yeah, to some extent, it's true that the power of the Sharia courts or the jurisdiction of the Sharia court have been curtailed to some extent. But to my mind, it is not against the constitution, then it can be considered as constitutional in the sense. Therefore, the matter that we must think for the future is to look into what else that the Sharia courts can do, or what focus that the Sharia courts can do, or even the state legislature to decide. Let's say we want to say that the Sharia courts or the state legislature will be focusing more on the Aqidah of Muslim, which is the most challenging subject matter nowadays. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dato'. So that's the end for the part 1. So you guys need to know that it's not mean that Sharia no longer have authority, because in these cases, we need to understand at any situation that state cannot make law on matter under federalist. That's why it is important for us to know about and to understand about the division power, because state thing regarding only Muslim, Akidah is the thing that state can handle. But in this matter, it is under federalist. And we move on to the second part, which is about the parliamentary democracy. So the first question, Dato', can you explain what is the concept of parliamentary democracy and how it is important in maintaining our Malaysian political stability?
Parliamentary democracy is a system of government which the executive branch derives its legitimacy and authority from the legislature. Okay, parliamentary democracy is a system of government which the executive branch of the government obtains or derives its legitimacy and authority from the legislature, and the executive is answerable to parliament. And the executive is answerable or accountable to parliament. So the key features of parliamentary democracy includes, I'm just give a brief one. So the key features of parliamentary democracy is that we have parliament itself. Parliaments which be composed of people who are elected, generally the elected legislature. When we have elected legislature, definitely we have political party system, because in order to have a general election and to elect this representative of the legislature, and they usually representing political party. So in a parliamentary democracy, then we have political party. So all those, we have elected representative, elected legislature. The second feature is, I said earlier, the executive authority or the members of the executive are accountable to, are accountable and guided by the parliament. Meaning to say, the executive, especially the cabinet, will be accountable to the parliament. So this is, as far as our constitution is concerned, is mentioned in Article 43, Clause 3. That's why you will learn in your constitutional law 1 later when you come to the main campus. So we have the executive will be accountable, or the parliament shall be accountable to the executive, or the cabinet shall be accountable to the parliament. And there will, and parliament also shall be vice versa, accountable to the cabinet. They both check and balance, has a power of a check and balance between the two. And there will be a separation of role and functions. Yeah, if you are legislature, then you cannot become member of the judiciary. But there's overlapping. There's no clear separation of powers in terms of membership. So in a parliamentary democracy, there's no separation of powers in terms of membership, but there's a clear separation of powers in terms of role and functions of the organs of the government. And mainly, the powers are centered at the parliament. So even the prime minister is also subject to the parliament. As we all know, that prime minister will become a prime minister and will remain as a prime minister because he has the confidence of the majority members of the House of Representatives. So the parliament will control, in a sense, will be centered with the powers over the executive. And in the parliamentary democracy, the administration will be by the majority, but with the rights of the minority. That is to say, although the majority shall have the power in terms of administration, but then the majority shall not forget that the minorities are also have their rights, and the minority also are those people who elect this. Among those minority, also people who elect the representative. Another character of parliamentary democracy is that we have a periodic election. However, it is not as frequent as the presidential system. Let's say in Malaysia, the life of parliaments or the lifespan of the legislature will be 5 years, and no, it's supposed to be, I mean, if we look at the provisions of law, it will be 5 years, but then unless sometimes we do have a premature election, that is election before the expiry of 5 years. But this is less frequent than the presidential system, whereby in the presidential system, they have every 2 years, they will have election to the legislature. And every 4 years, they will have a direct election of the president, because there's some difference between parliamentary system and presidential system. So in parliamentary democracy, sometimes you have monarchy, sometimes you don't have monarchy. But if we have monarchy, then we have in our parliamentary democracy, we have, probably you have questions on monarchy after this, but somehow I want to say that in our parliamentary democracy, we have monarchy, and there are some countries which do not have monarchy. However, most of the important thing we want to understand when we were to understand the character or the features of parliamentary democracy is that the prime minister is not directly elected by the people. So the prime minister is appointed by head of the state because we have the monarchy. So the head of the state appoint a prime minister based on the confidence rules as mentioned in the federal constitution. And the prime minister chooses its own cabinet. The prime minister chooses his own cabinets, whoever he wants to be in his cabinet lineup. That is purely the decision, although we know that the Agong appoints the cabinet members, but it's done in the advice of the prime minister. So this is just a brief and general understanding of what is meant by parliamentary democracy.
Okay, Datuk. Okay, so just now Datuk said that there are clear separation power about in the function of between these two houses, and maybe Datuk can explain more about why do actually we have the two house of parliament, which is namely one Dewan Rakyat and one Dewan Negara. Maybe about why the composition also different, and maybe Datuk can explain the function of it.
Just now, I did not mention about separation of power, separation between Dewan Rakyat and Dewan Negara. I was talking about separation of role between organs of the government. So I have to correct that then, because between the role and functions of the organs of the government. Now this question now is about the houses of parliament, right? The Dewan Rakyat and Dewan Negara. So now, as we all know, it is we are practicing at the federal level. We are practicing bicameral legislature, where we have at least two components. Now we have Agong, we have the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, we have the Dewan Negara, and also the Dewan Rakyat as a compositions of the parliament. Parliament shall compose of this. It's a bicameral legislature. So it is also interesting. There are some countries in the world, they only have one unicameral legislature. Meaning to say they only have one house of parliament. It's not two houses of parliament. So why is it so important to have two houses of parliament? So my teacher told me that to have a Dewan Negara. So in the state, at the state level, we have a unicameral. At the federal level, we have bicameral legislature. So my teacher told me why we need Dewan Negara. Because the political party temperature is too high in the Dewan Rakyat, in the House of Representatives. Therefore, the functions of Dewan Negara is to reduce the temperature, reduce the political party temperature. As you can see, debate in Dewan Negara is like a debate in a political party. If you follow the political speeches of the political party leaderships or members, yeah. So it looks like quite the same in the Dewan Rakyat. Therefore, generally, although this is not mentioned anywhere, it just is a normal, what we call, understanding, and it's logical if we see the practice of our, or the debate of our members of parliament. It looks like that the temperature is very, very high. The political party temperature is very high. In addition, the Dewan Negara is beyond the political market. The Dewan Negara is supposed to be beyond the political market. The Dewan Negara is a prestige majlis, it's a prestige Dewan. And of course, the composition of the Dewan Negara, as mentioned in the constitution, also, people who are experts, people who have contributed to the building of the nation, contributed in the civil services. Therefore, they will be members of parliament, members of the Dewan Negara especially. Therefore, I think one of the functions, most important functions of the Dewan Negara is to reduce the political temperature, political party temperature at the Dewan Rakyat or House of Representatives. And another important functions of the Dewan Negara is to represent the states. As we all know, there will be two representatives from every state and two representatives from Wilayah Persekutuan Kuala Lumpur, and each one from the Putrajaya and Labuan Federal Territory. The senators will be appointed. They are not elected, as we all know. There is no direct election. So 40 members will be appointed by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, who's in the minds of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, people who have contributed to the nation, people who have highly experienced, people are professionals, then they will be appointed. Another consideration is that these people are people to represent the underrepresented group of community. For instance, the special, people with special needs, the indigenous people, the natives, people who did not represent, whose group of people who are not presented or underrepresented in the Dewan Negara, and they cannot actually, they cannot win the general election. Therefore, they must be representative in the Dewan Negara. So Dewan Negara can be considered as a forum which composed of people who have experience, people who are experts, people who are have contributed to the nation, people who have well experience in the administration of the state, or they are experienced or civil servants, and also they are representing the underprivileged or underrepresented people. So now we have in terms of representation, Dewan Negara representing the states as well as those groups of people which I mentioned just now. So representing the state, why is it important for the states to be represented in Dewan Negara? Because the states should have the right to be given the opportunity to express their views and opinion, or they sometimes to protect the interests of the state so they can speak up in the Dewan Negara. So that is the purpose of having senators from the states, or representative from the state. Therefore, they are expected to be able to protect the rights of the states. However, in practice, as we have seen, the representative, the senators, sometimes some of them are appointed because they are the strong supporter of the government, for instance. So they sometimes, even though they lost in the general election, so the government thinks that they should be given the opportunity to lead any ministry. Then we have various ministers and deputy ministers who come from the Dewan Negara, who actually person appointed because they are strong supporter of the government's political party. But there is a normal practice in Malaysia, but then it must be proven, to my mind, that the senators to be appointed are people who are proven to be capable as the representative of the people according to the provisions of the Constitution. So their capabilities is determined by the Constitution. And at the state level, they will appoint, of course, we have seen in many senators from the states are the strong supporter of the political party at the state level. So people who support the government at the state level, they will be appointed as senator. We can have various examples on this. You will not appoint people from opposition political party to be senator of their states. So that is what's happening. But the functions, coming back to the functions of the Dewan Negara, and to have the senators is that senators from the state is that they will be representing the states as well as those group of people who are underprivileged people, underrepresented people, those group of people who could not win in the general election, no representative and no representative in the, or less representative in the Dewan Rakyat. Another functions of the Dewan Negara is to review and approve certain legislation. So as we all know that you have learned in probably your introduction to law, or on the main campus, then you will learn in your Malaysian legal system that the bill can be introduced in Dewan Rakyat or in the Dewan Negara. However, in Malaysia thus far, independence is almost 70 years, and the parliament the parliaments after independence existed, or the first parliament was in 1959 after the first general election after independence. We haven't seen of a bill introduced in the Dewan Negara. Although it is important that is also the principles, that the basic principles that we have, a bill can be introduced in the Dewan Rakyat or the Dewan Negara, but not the practice in Malaysia so far that we have the bill to be introduced or been introduced in the Dewan Negara. However, the main functions here in the making of the law, in the lawmaking process, is that the Dewan Negara shall review and approve the bill. However, even if the Dewan Negara does not approve the bill can be passed. Meaning to say, if a non-money bill, there are two types of bill in this situation. If a money bill that involves, let's say, a supply bill or the budget bill, as we know, the supply bill, if it is not passed by the Dewan Negara, so it's passed by the Dewan Rakyat, after first, second reading and third reading, it will go to Dewan Negara. But Dewan Negara cannot approve the bill. This is a money bill. If the Dewan Negara cannot approve the bill can be sent back to Dewan Rakyat. So Dewan Rakyat will have just a short time. I think is how many months? I can't remember. It's 1 month or 3 months. It will. Sorry. There's a provision of the Constitution. So the bill will be passed by the Dewan Rakyat, discussed and debate again in the Dewan Rakyat, and it will be sent to Dewan Negara again. It's a money bill. If the Dewan Negara disagree in the second time, it will be passed without that amendment. So the bill can become law. So that even though it is not agreeable by the Dewan Negara. But if it is a non-money bill, it's quite a longer delay that the Dewan Negara has. It will be sent back to Dewan Rakyat, and Dewan Rakyat will reintroduce the bill, I think in a year. After a year, the Dewan Rakyat can reintroduce the bill, and the bill will be sent to Dewan Negara. Even if the Dewan Negara disagree to the bill can proceed to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. So the bill can become law even though it is not agreeable by Dewan Negara. So it seems that in this situation, the Dewan Rakyat is very powerful. The Dewan Rakyat is very powerful. I think it is okay because Dewan Rakyat is where the representative of the people. And in democracies, probably people will have more say than those who are appointed in the Dewan Negara. Although the criteria of the membership in the Dewan Negara or the criteria of the senators is not to say much better than the Dewan Rakyat, but it's just that they are expected to give their to give their wisdom in the making of the law. But so that is the situation where now the question is whether the Dewan Negara can actually achieve the function to ensure that the law is really the bill is really a good law in order for the bill to be practiced or to be enforced as a law. Another functions of the Dewan Negara is to safeguard the position of the Constitution. So I was talking about the making of the law. It's a general law. It's a normal law. It's not law amending the Constitution. So if the law is if the Parliament is amending the law of the Constitution, it must get approval from both Dewan, from both Majlis from the Dewan Rakyat and the Dewan Negara. So Dewan Negara play an important role in the amendment in safeguarding the Constitution, in the sense that amendment to the federal Constitution must get approval from the Dewan Negara, meaning it must pass or it must be approved or agreed by Dewan Negara. It's different from the normal law, ordinary law like the supply bill or other laws, the money bills or the non-money bills. The Dewan Negara can only delay the process and the lawmaking. But in the making on the amendment to the Constitution, the Dewan Negara must approve. That is to say, in the normal bill, the Dewan Negara has no veto power. They can only have delaying power. But in terms of the amendment to the Constitution, the Dewan Negara can veto the proposed amendment. So what students have to understand is that they are in the relation to the powers of the Dewan Negara, we can divide the bill into 3 bills: money bill and non-money bills. Money bill and non-money bills, the Dewan Negara only has a delaying power. But another one is law amending the Constitution. In the law amending the Constitution, the Dewan Negara has a veto power in the sense that the Dewan Negara, the amendment shall only be approved is agreeable by the Dewan Negara. another two functions of the Dewan Negara is that they can advise the government. So because they can advise the government in the sense that because there are people who are, I mean, it's considered as people who have the prestige and they are able to giving good advice, to give good advice to the government. And finally, the Dewan Negara also can debate on national issues or important issues, national or international important issues. They can debate just like this here, we have a similar powers between the Dewan Negara and Dewan Rakyat. So in conclusion, why we should have a bicameral legislature so that they can check and balance between the two. Therefore, they can make sure that the law makes actually the law relevant and suitable for the in the enforcement. I mean, for the benefit of the people when they are enforced later on. So there can be political reasons to have two level of House of Parliament, but then the political stability is also ensured by having two legislature. If I can give you some example, where a country with only one legislature, for instance, the situation becoming more complicated. You have one legislature and you are practicing the presidential system, because the presidential system, the president may have a different political party from the Congress or the the House of Representatives, the House of Commons. So this is something, or the House of Commons. So there can be conflict between people, I mean, the legislature and also the president. So we are lucky, at least we have three institutions in the parliament that can, what we call, that can check on either one. Let's say the federal, the Dewan Negara can check on the Dewan Rakyat, and to some extent there can be conflict between the two, and the constitution also provide for some method or some ways to resolve the conflicts between the two houses of parliament. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dato. So we learned that both of them, although we have two House of Parliament, but both of them have their own function, have their own power, and also each of them plays significant role in our country. And the most important thing about check and balance between one and another. So we move on to the last part about constitutional monarchy. So the first question, Dato, what is actually the concept of constitutional monarchy, and what are the functions of YDPA in these organs of government? Dato, mute.
Okay, constitutional monarchy and their position, the organs of the government. I always advise my student to address Agong as Agong rather than YDPA. I think you've been too familiar with what you were taught by your teacher those days lah. So when come to university, please try to learn how to address people with their real name. Is the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. Although the general public is using that, but we are learning the law and we use the right address to people. Okay, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong and okay, constitutional monarchy in Malaysia. I first have to explain that there are three institutions of constitutional monarchy in Malaysia. One is the ruler at the state level. Second, we have the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. Another is we have Conference of Rulers. When we talk about monarchy, we are referring to these three institutions. So where is the position of the Conference of Rulers? Where is the position of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong? Because as we all know, that Conference of Rulers also has certain position explicitly mentioned in the Constitution, especially in Article 38. And and also Schedule number 3 and Schedule number 5 to the Federal Constitution. Therefore, to an extent that the Conference of Rulers has powers or control or functions or role to play in the administration of the states. So as far as the administration of the country is concerned, we have 3 organs of the government. We have the executive, legislative, and the judiciary. Rulers at the state level, they have the state legislative assembly, they have the legislature, they have the executive, the state public servant, and they have the state judiciary. So I'm talking about the national level, the federal level. So the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, as we all know, is the supreme head of the federation. As far as the national security is concerned, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong is the supreme commander of the armed forces. So the Yang di-Pertuan Agong plays a vital role as the head of the state. The Constitution does not explain to us what are the functions, what are the role that the head of the state should play. So it doesn't explain to us. Therefore, we can assume reasonably that the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, being head of the federation, head of the state, will be a member, and we have some powers and role to play in each organ of the government. So in each organ of government. What about the Conference of Rulers? We also know that the appointment of judges, for instance, the Conference of Rulers has certain role to play in the appointment of judges. So if we refer to the Federal Constitution, it's not only the it's not only the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, but there are roles to play by the Conference of Rulers. In Parliament, in relation to parliaments, I mean, I go one by one. Yeah? Let's go to the organ of government. The first one is the legislature. What is the position of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong in the legislature, in relation to the legislature? We read Article 44 of the Federal Constitution. It says that the legislative authority shall be vested in the parliament, which shall compose of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, the Dewan Negara, and the Dewan Rakyat. So as far as the relations or the powers of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong in relations to the legislature, we can see this in Article 55. Article 55 says that the Yang di-Pertuan Agong has the power to summon, prorogue, and dissolve the parliaments. So that is in relation. At every time when the parliament is coming into the session, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong will go to the parliament, deliver his speech, and the members of parliament will debate for a few days, 3 to 4 days, they will debate on the speech of the Agong. So that is the opening of the parliament. So when the parliament comes to end of the session, the parliament will be prorogued. Who prorogue the parliament? Prorogue means stop for a while, disperse for a while, but urgent for a while. That is urgent. Prorogue is urgent. So when the parliament is going to urgent, it also will be with the consent of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. At the state level, you just change the Yang di-Pertuan Agong with the ruler of the states. And when the parliament comes to an end, that is to say, for instance, with the parliament, with the government thinks that they are going for a general election, the prime minister decides to request for dissolution of parliament. So the prime minister will see the Yang di-Pertuan Agong and request for dissolution. So Article 40, Clause 2, Paragraph B says that the Yang di-Pertuan Agong may withhold the consent for dissolution. So Agong has the power to dissolve the parliament if there's a request. But at the same time, the Agong may withhold the consent, may disagree for request for dissolution of parliament. So the dissolution of parliament is premature, that is before the 5-year term. So it will be under the discretionary powers of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. If the parliament comes to an end when it reaches the age of 5 years. It completes the span of 5 years, so the parliament will automatically dissolve. You don't need the Yang di-Pertuan Agong to declare the dissolution of parliament. But if the dissolution to happen before the expiry of 5 years, before the end of 5 years, so the Yang di-Pertuan Agong will have the right to dissolve, or the Yang di-Pertuan Agong will not dissolve the parliament. It's up to Baginda. It's up to His Majesty whether to dissolve. So what most important for us to understand in relation to the position of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong with regard to the parliament, we can see in Article 55. Another thing is that in relation to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong and Parliament in the lawmaking process, which is provided in Article 66 of the Federal Constitution, Article 66 says that, the initial provision before it was amended in 1994, the initial provision is that after the bill had been passed by the Dewan Negara, from the Dewan Rakyat to Dewan Negara, then it will go to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. When it go to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong shall endorse or give his royal assent. His Majesty shall deliver a royal assent. But after the amendment been made, this is no more role to be played by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. If Baginda disagree to the bill shall still become law and enforceable with the date that can be specified by the minister concerned. So it's no more the power of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. So one of the powers of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong in terms of the legislature has been diluted by amendment to the constitution. So initially the Agong has the power to give the royal assent. In the sense, if the Yang di-Pertuan Agong those days, before the amendment, if the Yang di-Pertuan Agong disagree, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong can just veto the bill. So the bill cannot become law. However, when the amendment was made, one of these legislative power of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong has been removed, has been deleted by the constitutional amendment. So this is the relationship. And as far as the Conference of Rulers is concerned, in relation to the legislature, if the legislature is making a law that involves position, honors, dignities of the rulers of any of the rulers or the rulers in general, the parliament should get the royal consent or the consent of the Conference of Rulers. This is mentioned in Article 38, Clause 4. And another thing is that if the parliament is amending the constitution or certain provisions of the constitution, the parliament also should get the consent from the Conference of Rulers. So this is Article 159, Clause 5. So it's not only but I'm trying to say that when we talk about constitutional monarchy in Malaysia, it is a unique system where we have Yang di-Pertuan Agong and also the Conference of Rulers. And Conference of Rulers has been secured and safeguarded of certain powers mentioned in the Federal Constitution. So we cannot just ignore the Conference of Rulers when we talk about constitutional monarchy. So do you think that the monarchy, either Yang di-Pertuan Agong, the Conference of Rulers, relevant in relation to the legislature? I think yes, at all times they are relevant in the working stability of the legislature in Malaysia, or legislature in relation to legislature also, or in the making of the legislation in Malaysia. Secondly, if we can see in Article 39, this is about executive authority. The executive authority in Malaysia is vested in the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. So the executive authority is vested in the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, meaning to say to whom that the executive authority belongs to. The executive authority in Malaysia belongs to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. Baginda, His Majesty, can exercise the executive authority or that executive authority can also be exercisable by someone else, which is recognized by the Constitution, that is the executive authority can be exercised by the Jemaah Menteri or anyone named by a federal law to exercise that executive authority. So the constitutional monarchy in relations to the executive, the constitutional monarchy possess the power, the authority, the executive authority. Therefore, the cabinet, or when we say that the cabinet, the Jemaah Menteri, historically derive its powers from the executive, from the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, from the ruler of the states, or from the monarchy. As I said earlier, when we form a federation, the federal will receive powers from the state. The state surrender their powers to the federation. So the same thing goes in relation to the executive authority, that the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, or the ruler, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, through the consent from the Conference of Rulers, give away certain powers, or delegation of powers to the cabinet. So the Jemaah Menteri will exercise the executive authority, which is vested in the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. I think if it's in class, I will deliberate further on this matter. Somehow, the relationship or the position of the monarchy in Malaysia in relation to the executive authority, that it has the executive authority. It belongs to him, belongs to His Majesty. The executive authority belongs to His Majesty, but exercisable by someone else, that is the Jemaah Menteri. Okay, and in terms of the executive power, executive authority, this is mainly explained in the appointment process. Yeah, so the certain appointments, certain important appointment, let's say Yang di-Pertuan Agong appoints the Attorney General, Yang di-Pertuan Agong appoints members of the Election Commission. So this is exercised in the Yang di-Pertuan Agong's power. As executive power. So the appointment powers is among the executive powers. Next is the judiciary. The relevant provision is Article 121 of the Federal Constitution, that the judiciary, there will be high courts of coordinate jurisdiction, meaning to say in Malaysia we have judiciary, and the power of the judiciary is explained in the Courts of Judicature Act. Therefore, we don't see whether the Yang di-Pertuan Agong has the judicial power, has the judicial power or not. But in so it looks like His Majesty does not have this judicial power, although historically speaking, the judicial power also will be with the will be the ruler of the states. So will be the constitutional monarchy. It was with the constitutional monarchy, because if we see in the history, the ruler of the state was always be the highest court of appeal. We look at the old constitutional provisions in the states of Johor, for instance, the states of Terengganu, for instance, we can see that His Majesty will interpret the Constitution, meaning to say His Majesty is also a court. The Majesty will preside over the court. So this is to show that His Majesty is also part of the judicial members. No more now. No more now. Except that in the current issue, like the constitutional monarchy, or the Yang di-Pertuan Agong at federal level, or the rulers of the state level, will preside over a pardon board, preside over a pardon board. And this is a prerogative power of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong to make decisions whether to pardon or not to pardon, whether to give reprieve or respites under Article 42. So, but then the pardon board is not judiciary, because it's more to mercy. So when justice comes to an end, mercy comes to play. That's where the pardon board comes to play. But then in terms of the relationship, I mean, the position of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong and the Conference of Rulers in the appointment of the members of the High Court, for instance, the judges of the High Court. So the appointment of judges at the High Courts, beginning from High Courts, Courts of Appeal, and the federal courts, there's some involvements that the Yang di-Pertuan Agong and the Conference of Rulers. So appointments must get the approval from the Conference of Rulers. So judges, so we have the recent, I mean, today probably you have read, or you should have read, or you should have seen videos on the speech of the Chief Justice. This is important for you to really understand how the system works. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dato. Maybe just now Dato have answered about the significance and also the relevance of conference of rulers in Malaysia today. So maybe can add additional question. What can we say to the people that make assumption that conference of rulers now is not even relevant? So what can we say to this group of people to defend our conference of rulers?
I think being a law student, I think the first and foremost thing we must know is what is the position, powers, and role to play by the Conference of Rulers. Therefore, we can see that the Conference of Rulers is still relevant because the law says so. But is the law still relevant? The law is the law still relevant? The law that giving certain or recognize certain powers, positions of the Conference of Rulers. What I can say to see the current development is probably not only young people, there is probably older people also questions on the position of the monarchy, not only the Conference of Rulers, but also the position of other like the rulers of the state. And first and foremost, that we must understand their powers and functions. And secondly, we must understand, we must also to appreciate the presence of the Conference of Rulers. So the main question that we can ask is, to this group of people that we can ask is, if we don't have a Conference of Rulers, what to replace them? What to replace the Conference of Rulers? So because there are things which we need a neutral party, then the constitutional, the monarchy is supposed to be, or is expected to be, reasonably expected to be what we call a neutral party, that to be check and balance. Just imagine that in our country, if we don't have the Conference of Rulers, then we'll be practicing something like presidential system or republic system without the rulers. Are we not facing the politicians more than, I mean, we are going to face the challenges, how to tackle the politicians as an alternative if we no more having the Conference of Rulers. So what I can say here is that the Conference of Rulers is relevant in the sense that they can become a check and balance institution or check and balance mechanisms in the situation where we find difficulty in a political conflict or political chaotic situation, as what we face those years between 20 to 22, 2020 to 2022. You know, we have problems. We have what we call political difficulty and instability of the politics in Malaysia, and therefore this Conference of Rulers, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong together with the Conference of Rulers. I think since early days, people question the Conference of Rulers. They say that they are not functioning. They can only appoint the Agong, and they are, you know, They are using people's money. There's a lot of allegation against them. Somehow it's proven when when politics is unstable, the government is unstable, then the Yang di-Pertuan Agong will take the responsibility when it makes the position, the Conference of Rulers, the existence of Conference of Rulers shall make the Agong is supported by their brother rulers. And I think the more the merrier, the more leaders you have with the neutral, supposed to be the neutral and with full of wisdom. We can see the administration of the country as an eager eye view. It's not their perspective in constitutional power, in political power, but rather is for the benefit of the nation. Just imagine if you don't have the Conference of Rulers, what is to replace them? How do we go about looking for another, looking for another mechanism of check and balance and to make politicians accountable?
Okay.
But of course, there are advantages and disadvantages, but I think the advantages are more and glaring to have the Conference of Rulers. Thank you.
Okay, Dato', thank you for the explanation. So maybe Dato', we have end our question, which is 3 part of key government that we focus today, but we still have got several questions from our viewer that we choose to question, which is the first question, Dato', because Malaysia's separation of powers include the Prime Minister, which exists in the executive and legislative body. Are there any possible disadvantage to this concept?
I cannot get the questions just now.
Okay, I repeat. So because Malaysia's separation of powers include the Prime Minister, which exists in the executive and legislative body, are there any possible disadvantage to this concept?
For now, we are saying that the cabinet comes from the parliament, so there's no separation of powers. There are mechanisms actually to balance the executive powers and the functions of the parliament, as we have seen that the provisions, the constitutional provisions, as I mentioned earlier, collectively responsible to parliament. So if the Prime Minister is a member of parliament, then he is responsible to parliament. So that is probably difficult to understand how to make the Prime Ministers and Cabinet answerable to Parliament. Sedangkan they are also from the Parliament. Okay, so as far as the parliamentary system is being practiced, there will be a certain mechanism in the Parliament itself where they will have a special committee. I think you are familiar with what we call the committee regarding Public Account Committee, PAC. Are you familiar with PAC? So, for example, there have been the Auditor General report presented before the Parliament, and there will be questions on certain agencies that probably there's abuse of money, whatever, expenses which cannot be explained, So there will be a special committee. So they name as Public Account Committee. This is the most popular. They will have Standing Audit Committee, and all this committee is actually to question the executive or to any people who has the power or exercise the power. And the members of the Public Account Committee, the Public Account Committee, as we see now, the chairman is from the opposition. So one of the ways, although since we don't have the separation of powers in terms of membership, so our membership, our separation of powers is not clear in terms of membership. Therefore, what Parliament must do is that the Parliament must create a jawatan kuasa, must create committee which composed of people from all political parties, from members of Parliament. and probably the opposition member will lead the jawatan kuasa with questions on the questions of accountability of the members of parliament, accountability of the executive. So this is the mechanism applied in parliamentary system. So at the parliament, there will be in the parliament there will be various committee. The various committee will this committee will be mostly will be led by the opposition members. So this is one of the solutions that the executive, the parliament shall control the executive. So all members of parliament from the opposition will be working truthful to the people, and they will check on what the executive are doing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dato'. I think we can take one more question from the viewer. Okay, the question is, Dato', could you clarify on the case that solidified the supremacy of the Constitution, Ahtian against Government of Malaysia, 1976 to MLJ 112?
I think that can be done by your lecturer lah. If the questions come from the Malaysian, from the foundation lah. I think the lecturer can explain the contents of Ahtian case. So it's about constitutional supremacy. The Sufyan decided that parliamentary sovereignty is not applicable in Malaysia. And what we have here is parliamentary supremacy. And the parliamentary supremacy shall what we call the parliamentary supremacy means the separation of powers between federal and the state, the separation of powers between organs of the government, and also there will be fundamental rights. I think the lecturer can explain to you lah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dato', for insightful and meaningful sharing for today. So I think before we end, maybe Dato' can give some advice for our students that in foundation, or maybe some motivation to motivate them to continue and further their study before we end.
Okay. I think reading law needs some discipline in yourself. Just read more, because when we say that you study law, it doesn't mean that you study. You study means you read. So my experience tells me that is a real gap between students and there's a real gap between students and their readings, their what we call students. My observation my general observation is that not many students who what we call do a lot of reading. So my advice is that if you want to pursue reading law, then you must read a lot of things. And reading law is not only reading the law. You must know the sociology, you must know the political science, you must know also the history of the nation, the culture of the nation. Sociology means culture, religion, etc. So you must be well-read students. So I think is to pursue with reading the law. Another thing is that whatever we do, that we must have a good intention. So that will guide us. What intention do you have? Then it's probably must be a noble intention where you will contribute to the nation, inshallah. Especially those graduates from Islamic University. You must have integration of knowledge. Then when you study law also, it's not necessary that you will study only the conventional law. You study the Shariah. In this university where you name it as a garden of knowledge and virtues. And we must not forget that reading law is with the intention of making law acceptable to all, then it will bring us a better life, not only this world, but also to the hereafter. Then I wish everyone the best, and probably you can have constitutional law as your favorite subjects. And I would like to thank the organizing Cik Ridwan, Mr. Ridwan, and also the administrators at the law and the foundations of International Islamic University. I'm very proud to be with you. But whatever we discuss today can enlighten us on certain issues and subject matters, and probably it can make us a better person and knowing the nation and understand the system. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dato. I think that's all. So everyone, remember that Dato said always have good intention, so that at the end we can contribute to the nation. So I think thank you, Dato, for insightful and meaningful sharing. And I hope and I believe that all of you learned a lot from today's lecture. So I will pass back the stage to our MC, Aina Batrisha.
Thank you so much, Dato Associate Professor Dr. Shariah and Brother Aiman Najmi. As we come to the end of this forum, I would like to express our deepest gratitude to our distinguished expert speaker for sharing an invaluable insights, and to all of you for your active participation. For all CFS IIUM students, don't forget to fill the attendance form provided in the chat box for your star points. We hope today's sessions has been enlightening, that you have lived with newfound perspectives, inshallah. Before we part ways, let us take a moment to appreciate the effort and dedication behind this successful forum. Thank you once again, and we look forward to seeing you in the future events. On behalf of the organizer, we would like to apologize for any shortcomings. Let us end our program with Tasbih Kifarah and Surah Al-Asr. Stay safe, everyone. Stay inspired and have a wonderful day, everyone. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you so much, Dato'.